And welcome to Conservatives Talk.
And this is going to be our last installment of GAGOP Executive Committee candidates. And we're going to have Caroline Jeffords on, who's going to talk about her campaign for GAGOP Secretary.
That is, unless he who should not be named says he wants to come on. And welcome back to Conservatives Talk. My name is Justin.
And this is Jamie.
And as always, we like to remind you of Jamie's Law and that you must hit the like button and the share button on any of the content that you do come across on any of the platforms we release it on, as well as make sure you're hitting that subscribe button because, as you know, Jamie Law does say that you must subscribe so you can learn. We also require that you go to our website at conservativestalk.org and hit that sponsor tab in the upper right-hand corner and the lower right-hand corner and help us out with every bit of what Jamie and I deserve to be given just in these trying times. Again, Jamie's needing some assistance, and we would like to keep this show going on the road. So, Jamie, with that in mind, would you care to give us your first reminder?
Boycott hometown headlines. We're almost there, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to get rid of liberal local news.
It's always a great fight.
Always a great fight.
So with that in mind, we also like to say a quick thank you to our affiliates, and our first one being Net News Network. So you can find Net News Network on any major, well, shit. Okay, and then. So with that in mind, let's say a quick thank you to our affiliates, and our first one being Net News Network. So you can find Net News Network at netnewsnetwork.net. So Net News Network is a local compilation, or it's a compilation of local on-the-ground news producing podcasters and show producers. You can find a great variety of firsthand information from across the United States on this platform. So make sure you are looking for Net News at netnewsnetwork.net. We also want to say a quick thank you to Veterans for America First. Veterans for America First is the premier America First policy organization. And they really use their platform to really push their policy views through their media platform, and that is Vet Voice. So make sure you are looking for Vet Voice on every social media platform. So, Jamie, how about let's bring on our guest for this week?
Yeah. So we're going to bring on Caroline Jeffords now, and we're going to start talking about her campaign for secretary.
Miss Jeffords, can you hear us?
I sure can.
Thank you very much for joining us here. You are, I would say, probably the last candidate that we're going to end up doing interviews with, just simply because, I mean, what convention's next weekend? So about a week and a half?
Week and a half, yes.
So yeah, it's
save the best for last.
Yeah, we've whittled our way down, and now we have the sharpened fine tip.
Yeah. So
like
that makes me feel great. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was off the top of the head too.
So just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Can you give us what would we like to do is essentially your political resume?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first I would like to just tell you a little bit about myself personally. I feel that plays into it. I am a Georgia native, which is hard to find these days.
Yeah.
Was actually born at DeKalb General Hospital. And then my parents moved up to Gwinnett County, North Gwinnett County, actually. And so I attended elementary, middle, and high school all there. And then went on to go to even college here in Georgia at Georgia Tech. So I live, sleep, breathe Georgia. It's all I've ever known. And it's obviously what I call my home. And I've really had no desire to leave. And then I also had the opportunity to become Miss Georgia USA 2004. So I have literally done everything Georgia. And during that time, I had the opportunity to serve as an ambassador to Georgia all across the state, as well as the United States, and even a few opportunities to go outside the country to represent Georgia. So that was a great experience, and that really helped me to dial in my love of service, community service, and serving others. I feel like that's definitely a mission that we have been put on earth here to do. And then, so after doing that, I went on to actually work with a lot of charities in Atlanta, Mercy Care for one, that helped a lot of our homeless and homeless veterans. And then segued into the Atlanta Ballet and Atlanta Food Bank. And then currently I serve on the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta Marcus Autism Board. And so I've chaired many events for Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. I love to brag about the fact that up until this year, I held the record for the amount of dollars raised, but I still hold, so this year they broke that, but I still hold the record for cost to raise $1, lowest cost to raise $1. So that's, to me, that's an ultimate reward.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's something to be proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a lot of great work.
And then I've gone on to chair the Marcus Autism Center, their largest fundraisers, the Season of Hope. So I have chaired that event, as well as help recruit and build kind of a pipeline for folks to get into that. Last year I had my girlfriend, she co-chaired that. And then this year, another girlfriend of mine is co-chairing, as well as Kelly Loeffler. So we are excited to have both of them, and they'll bring some new energy and some new corporate sponsors. So again, that's just, I've been very community minded and for over 20 years, and just happy to give back and serve Georgia in any capacity.
Wow, that's
my personal story.
Yeah, that in itself is amazing.
Yeah.
So why even transfer all that energy into politics?
Yes, well, thank you. That's a very good question to lead me to my next topic. So like many of you, I've been involved in politics and loved politics since I can remember. When I was a little girl, I remember my grandmother would watch me, and I remember her having her little AM radio in the kitchen, listening to Neil Bortz on Ring Radio. I don't even know if y'all remember Ring Radio. So I grew up as a little girl listening to Neil Bortz. And then obviously Rush Limbaugh. Do you even remember when Rush had a television show?
Yeah,
I did. I watched it religiously with my parents. And I was also that student in high school and college driving to school, listening to Neil Bortz and other conservative talk show hosts on the radio. So that was me. And I even knew in high school when I turned 18 that, do not vote for Bill Clinton. Hillary is going to bring on Hillary, like even at that point in time. So it's in my blood, it's in my genetics. And so, and my dad has certainly passed that down to me. We talk about politics all the time. So I certainly, I was not active in terms of holding a role or an office within the district or county positions, but I certainly went to events to support our candidates and donated. I think the first one that I donated to was Mitt Romney. I apologize for that already. So sorry. But back then he was our only choice then.
Yeah, that's true.
So I've asked for forgiveness on that one. But certainly trying to support a lot of our conservative candidates in Georgia, as well as President Trump. Even as early as 2015, the first event that he ever did here in Georgia was at the Georgia World Congress Center. I don't even know if you remember. And so I had signed up to be a volunteer. So I was there all day long, volunteering and serving for him. And then I even made campaign phone calls for him early on. And that was a great experience because I was able to, I wasn't just calling folks in Georgia, I was calling folks all across the country. So that was a really unique and special opportunity to gain those insights. And also I'll mention when I was Miss Georgia USA, President Trump owned the Miss USA pageant at the time. So he made it a priority to come back and meet with each of us, talk with us, learn about us. And so I could tell at that point, he really valued us and really wanted to help us use that as a platform to to further our own goals. So getting back to the rest of my political resume, so fast forward to 2020, watching television, and President Trump has this. We're all good. I go to bed at probably 1:30 in the morning, wake up at around 5, and I'm like, what has happened? What is going on? Definitely knew something wasn't right. And so immediately got involved. I became they call it a recount. I don't call it a recount. The term is a risk limiting audit. And we can go on and on about that, but I served as a monitor for that at the Georgia World Congress Center. And that was very, very eye-opening. I wasn't allowed to say anything to the counters. All I could do was raise my hand and bring over a supervisor when I saw something wrong. And so obviously I saw many things wrong. And some people were very scared to say something, and that's just never been in my blood. I'm very, I'm a bold woman, and I want truth to be known. And if you're doing something wrong, I want to alert someone to that. So I raised my hand, asked for a supervisor, and lo and behold, I had no clue who the players were at the time with Fulton County elections, but immediately had Richard Barron, who was the Fulton County elections director, one of the Fulton County attorneys, as well as some other key players surrounding me and in my face, intimidating me because I just simply asked a question and wanted clarification. And like I said, I consider myself a pretty tough cookie, but I had never been kind of ganged up on like that and intimidated quite like that before. And, I found myself trying to hold back tears. And so it was, and then shortly after, they sent the workers that we questioned who were counting to go on a lunch break. And then they never came back, and then they packed up. And then shortly after, they said, "Oh, we're finished for the day. We're finished. We're going to come back tomorrow. It'll take us all day tomorrow." And I'm like, this is very bizarre. Well, I had a funeral the next day, so I made sure to send my dad back. And my dad was happy to go back and look for Richard Barron and give him a piece of his mind after what he did to his daughter.
Yeah.
And my dad was there, and by 11 o'clock, they were sending everyone home saying they were finished. And it was like, well, wait, you just said last night that it was going to take you at least another day to count. And I was able to take videos and pictures and saw just how unsecure those ballots were, and saw when counters finished, sometimes they just left the ballots on the tables. Like they're supposed to record the count, put them in a ballot. It's called like a ballot suitcase, put the tag on it. So you have the seals and the proper, I can't think of the name right now, but the proper ways in which to verify who did what and the times, date. Ballots were just sitting on tables. And when I went and alerted someone, they're like, "Oh, that's no big deal. Miss so-and-so will get to that in a minute." So I was just astounded that this is how our votes are treated, which are the most sacred thing that we have and differentiate us from the world. So I was appalled. So I just couldn't stand by and let that continue and go by. I was connected with Garland. He actually helped me become a monitor that day. I wasn't even able to become a monitor through the Republican Party. I had to go through the Constitution Party to do that. And so got in touch with Garland, and obviously was involved in a lot of things that were, revealing what was going on throughout the state at that time. And so we got together and filed a lawsuit against Fulton County on December 24th, 2020, for what had taken place, specifically with the absentee ballots in Fulton County. And that grew. We grew our legal team. We had our first hearing on January 6th of all dates. But that case, they had moved that to a superior court, Judge McBurney in Henry County, which he heard of. I think every month we had a hearing. And he got to the point where on May 21st of 2021, he unsealed the ballots and was allowing us to proceed with an inspection. And then at that point, So this is a civil matter. At that point, Fulton County starts to freak out. They hire Don Samuels, who's a criminal defense attorney, to go up against us in a civil matter. And so he was throwing the book at us and everything. And then our last hearing that we had with Judge Amero, he later ruled that I didn't have standing. After about 9-10 months in court, he decided I don't have standing, which is usually the very first thing they deal with.
Yep.
And so, we filed with the Georgia Appeals Court. We went before the Georgia Appeals Court in June of 2022, I believe. And they didn't rule against us per se, but really decided that they felt the Georgia Supreme Court needed to be the one to make this determination on standing. And as we all know, all of the cases across the country have been dismissed on standing.
Yep.
So we pursued that. We took it to the Georgia Supreme Court. Fortunately, where there was a case ahead of us that was also kind of dealing with standing. And we used that in our brief as an example for them to go by. So last fall, I believe it was October or November, they ruled that in the case of the Sons of Confederate Veterans, that they do have standing. And they also went as far, this is the Georgia Supreme Court, to clarify that voters indeed do have standing, which is a pretty historic ruling, particularly for Georgia, but also can set precedents for other states across the country. So
you would think that would
is monumental.
I think that would be the case just right off the bat. In all honesty,
you would think,
mm-hmm.
but we had to get that clarified by the Georgia Supreme Court. So fortunately, they did see the law as we read it and interpreted it. But it wasn't until just about a month ago let me back up. They asked the Georgia Appeals Court to vacate their original ruling and issue a new ruling based on their finding that voters do have standing. So it took the appeals court a little while to rule on that. But like I said, about I think it was about maybe 4 weeks ago, they ruled that in fact we do have standing and we can proceed with our case and pick up where we left off. And they sent our case back to Judge Amero in Henry County Superior Court. Well, we were ecstatic and celebrating, but we've learned throughout this process, you can't celebrate too long. And so apparently that evening at like 11 o'clock at night, 10:30, Judge Amero issued an order recusing himself from the case and assigning it to Judge McBurney in Fulton County Superior Court. And I don't know how familiar you are with Judge McBurney, but McBurney had dismissed David Perdue's case, which is very similar to mine, had dismissed that about a year ago, and which they are filing with. They had just filed with Georgia Supreme Court or appeals, and now the Georgia Supreme Court. But he's also handling the Fannie Willis grand jury. Mm-hmm. So obviously, that we were surprised by everything. We felt that was an unprecedented move by Judge Amero. To not only recuse himself after he's intimately familiar with the case, but then also assign it to a specific judge. Typically, that they give it to the Chief Justice of the Superior Court, and they determine. So here we are. But we also, within 5 days, we had to file a brief and a motion and an affidavit stating why we feel Judge McBurney should recuse himself from the case. So we did all of that. We are still waiting to hear from Judge McBurney, or we actually asked someone else to determine if he should be recused from the case. So we're still waiting to hear that news. We certainly would appreciate your prayers on that. We've already seen miracles work in this case, and we just feel that someone else would probably be better suited to hear our case.
I agree with that.
It sounds like he's got enough on his plate already.
I think exactly. His plate seems very full. And so I just think someone else should probably take a look at that with some fresh eyes.
Exactly. I would agree with that wholeheartedly. So that
brings us up to the case. Mm-hmm. But also going back to 2020, I was like, what do I need to do here? I've watched different news outlets and sources. I like to watch a lot of them because I want to make sure I get the full story and I can make up my own mind. Well, Steve Bannon was obviously all over the precinct strategy. And so I looked up Fulton County Republican Party and figured out, okay, well, I think at that point it was either end of February or early March, they were having our precinct meetings. So I went and I signed up. I think I was vice chair for my precinct, got my husband to come along. My parents did their part in Gwinnett County. And then for the county convention, I decided I'm going to run for assistant secretary. And so I ran. I won that position. And then take it to the next level at the district convention. I was like, I'm going to run for a state committee position. I want a voice. I want to be heard. And I want to make sure, someone like me who represents everyday people, who hasn't been a lifelong politician, that I have a say. And so I won that as well. So I did that for the 2 years. And then most recently, this new cycle, I ran for vice chair, this time for Fulton County, and won that. And I also ran for to continue to be the district committee member. Well, actually, I was redistricting. So I was in the 11th district, and then now I'm in the 5th district. So I won the 5th district state committee position. And then I began to educate myself some more on the state executive committee and what their roles are and how critical they are. And I thought, I'm going to run for secretary here. I feel like I have a lot to contribute. I have a voice that wants to be heard. I feel like I represent, again, the voice of the people like me. And I want to be a part of that. And so that's where I have found myself now running for this position. And again, I feel, fortunately this year, it's been like the year of the woman. We have so many women running for these positions.
I never even noticed that, really.
Yeah. And I'm not, trust me, I'm not a feminazi or anything like that.
I think it's great.
But, we do bring a unique perspective. And quite frankly, we hear the Republicans talk about all the time that they want to target the moms or the women, because we do tend to have lots of opinions and spread those opinions and have a great circle of influence. And so that has driven me to the place where I am today.
Well, you were talking about doing a lot of research on the state executive board. So my first question with that would be, what exactly do you see the role of secretary as being within the state executive? Sure.
Well, I also want to go back to one important point that stuck out to my mind when I did my research and asked around is the state executive committee has a very unique duty during an election cycle, a presidential election cycle. And that unique duty is that they have a say in who goes on our presidential primary ballot. And so I felt, wow, for me to be able to have a say in that and a part of that seemed extremely valuable to me. And so that was my initial driving force, to be honest with you. And then went on to, the duties for the state secretary as laid out in the bylaws are pretty simple and fundamental. It's, helping prepare for the convention and gathering the data and information. So there's not a lot laid out there. But I think that's great. That's an opportunity for me to hopefully, with the permission of the newly elected chair, expand what that role can do. And being in the position that I've been in, from precinct to county to district, and also traveling around the state campaigning, I feel there's a lot of room here to for the state party to be a resource for the districts, for the counties, for the precincts. This really is designed to be a bottom-up run organization and not a top-down, because really our number one goal is to get people elected and win in 2024. And I'm sorry, but the precinct chairs and everybody in part of it, they know their neighbors and their neighborhoods far better than I ever could from a state committee position. And so I feel we need to empower the precincts, the counties, and the districts, and whether that be through helping to combine or find systems that enable them to better manage their data, their member data, and communicate with them. But also, we can't rely on the RNC to provide us information about Republican voters that don't go to meetings and sign up. So there are many outside resources that we can use to help better increase the accuracy of our data that we have to work with.
Yeah, I mean, we can't rely on accurate information from them. That's
you hit a sore point there.
Yeah, I was in Washington last week, and that was the one thing that I brought up to them was that the walk book and data information that they provided us was not accurate at all.
And I hear that across the state, and that's probably the number one biggest complaint from folks.
Yep.
Like, we want to be out there and help, but we don't have accurate data to do it.
Yep.
That's true. So we've talked a little bit about what the RNC could do better. What is it that you think that by you coming on to the executive committee here, what could you come in and do better, or where do you think that the state executive board could be doing better right now as an organization in getting candidates elected throughout the state?
Well, I think also, I mean, what I just talked about also applies to getting candidates elected. If we have trash data to provide our candidates to work with, it's junk in, junk out. Yep. So how are we ever going to get them elected if they really don't have the proper data in which to do so? So, I mean, the data is really key to that as well. Fundraising is key to that. And outreach. We certainly need to be reaching out to minorities as well, but we also just need to not expect everyone to come to us. We've got to go to them. I have a young daughter. We're kind of, somewhat of a young family. I like to say I still am. But, having a breakfast every Saturday morning at 8 a.m., that's when my child has practice.
Yep.
So how are you going to attract that segment of the state if you're only wanting to do things on your terms and not when it would be convenient for them? So I'm not saying we shouldn't have Saturday morning breakfast, but I'm just saying we need to kind of spread the love around and figure out what would be a better way to enable other folks to come and hear our message. And even sometimes not coming to us, but just going to them. How do we go to them?
A commissioner said one time, we can't expect young people to be involved when all we do is meet at 8 a.m. on Saturdays and argue.
Right.
We got to find a way to be more effective and get more go to youth or be more engaging and try to come together as a party more. And that kind of falls on the state executive committee.
And quite frankly, I feel like we need to do a better job of educating the community in general about issues and what's going on and how the Republican Party's stance on that. I mean, just obviously election integrity, which is my number one issue. I could talk all day about that, but even education. I mean, I've personally experienced this myself. What's going on in our education, and I don't think people really understand the depths of how they are trying to change the culture of our state and America through our children and the propaganda and the brainwashing that's going on. I mean, this year we had to withdraw my daughter from a private Christian school in Atlanta because of the agenda was what they were pushing. And it became clear that the agenda superseded the academics.
Wow.
Yeah.
And as a parent, I wasn't going to tolerate that.
I went to one of those schools here in Northwest Georgia as well. And to my understanding, it has gone 180 degrees from where I was.
It's sad.
Yeah, it's.
And what they're making these children question, my daughter's in middle school and how they're even doing it to children in elementary school, but even in middle school, that's when they're supposed to find out who they are, try new things, try new sports. But they're just pressuring them to, do you think you might be gay? Do you think you might be a boy? Do you need to, we're a safe place for you to talk to if you can't talk to your parents. So
that's not a school's role.
Upside down.
Yeah. Wow.
That's not a school.
That's going on in that type of a school as well. Is
that's not the role of a teacher or any adult outside of the parents. Period.
Correct. So and so again, like providing education rich information to people, even in independents. There's a lot of Democrats fed up with this, much less just Republicans in general. Let's just not provide a breakfast where we talk about our schedule and what we're doing. I mean, we need to provide, we can put that on a piece of paper and hand it to them or have it on a website. We need to help educate them about what's going on and what we as a party are trying to do about that and how they can help in contributing to solve that and overcome those issues.
I mean, I like it. One of the biggest things that we ran into here in Floyd County when doing what Jamie and I were trying to help out the local party with here was getting access to materials that weren't just we have a very large Spanish community here. And Spanish or the Spanish population is their culture mimics our conservative beliefs.
Very much so.
And not having access to material that we could then take and present to members in this community, or even just to have members of that community present it to their friends and family, it was kind of a letdown in that instance. And we had reached out to the state party on multiple occasions and either received crickets or that it just was not something they were really interested in pursuing.
We ended up having to go to a different organization and get, bilingual pamphlets just explaining the difference in between the two candidates that we could have passed out because we just couldn't get anything, from the state party that just showed our platform in, a bilingual language. So,
well, and quite frankly, again, that talks to the point where the state party needs to be a resource. Why do we need to keep reinventing the wheel 159 different times with every county? Why can't we have a template that the counties can go to and just fill in their county name and add a few specific other names here and there and tweak it? But we've basically got it teed up and set up for them.
That's all we were asking for. I was like, I'm not asking for 500 copies. I'm asking for something that's approved by them that we can go print off or put our logo on, or even use the state party logo and pass it out.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the role. That's one of the roles of the executive board going forward, is just making sure that all the districts and the counties have available templates and additional information that's already kind of somewhat pre-approved by the state committee and the executive committee, that county chairs or district chairs can kind of go to as a resource, and then we distribute going out.
And we have to connect other counties. We can't live on 159 separate islands. If we want to win, we've got to come together and work together. Let's work smart. I don't mind working hard. I'm a hard worker, but let's work smart and then work hard. So I feel like we need to have that approach a little more, particularly going into 2024 election, where there is no other option but to win.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the number one and only goal with 2024, because they say it with every election cycle, but in all honesty, if I just don't see us as being able to maintain anything after
we won't survive.
2024.
We won't survive.
Look at the damage. Look at the damage Joe Biden's done in just a little over 2 years. I would have never thought it possible.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would have never envisioned it. Weaponizing the DOJ and the other acronym, I mean, it's really un-American, and it's obvious they're going after our free speech. And if we lose our free speech, I mean, I don't know how we turn back from that.
Well, there's one way, and it's the amendment that comes after the free speech amendment. True.
But, they're trying to cut down on that and what they're doing to our military and
combined with Article 5. But that's
won't talk about
details.
Oh, well, Miss Jeffords, I have to say it has been a real treat having you on and speaking with you and getting to hear exactly what your plans are moving forward when you are elected into this position. So,
Thank you.
I know you've got my support behind it.
Mine as well.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
yeah,
And I hope it comes across. I mean, I am passionate about this.
mhm.
And my family has supported me every step of the way. You know, when I said, "Hey, I'm going to do this lawsuit," you'll support me. Hey, I'm going to run for this position or that position. And now it's so sweet. I mean, my daughter probably is more informed than most adults on election issues and other issues as well. And it's so cute when I go out the door now to go to a campaign event. She's like, "Mom, go save the world. You can do it."
That's awesome.
So, you know, it's great to have that family support. And I feel like I'm also setting that example for her, that you stand up for your principles. You don't just go along to get along and be weak-kneed. I'm not here to tolerate that.
Absolutely.
Well, again, ma'am, it has been an absolute pleasure. And we will be seeing you next weekend, it looks like.
June 8th, 9th, and 10th. Can't wait.
Oh, yeah.
In beautiful Columbus.
I don't.
My favorite place.
I've spent way too many months in Columbus. I did a lot of training down there in the Army, and don't get me started about Columbus. Jamie has a completely different perspective.
Yeah, there's a Morgan Wallen
do.
song that relates to me in Columbus.
Well, I actually have family down in Columbus and in Phoenix City. So I, as a child, have very vivid memories of going down there for family reunions and getting together with family. So still have some down there as well.
Well, sounds like you've got some built-in support down there too. So, well, it was a pleasure having you on, ma'am. And we look forward to seeing you next weekend down in Columbus and seeing how everything flushes out.
Well, thank you. And thank you both for all that you do and being a voice of conservatism. I think it's extremely important. As much as they're trying to take people off the air and remove that, it's essential that we have voices like yours out there to carry the message forward. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. See you soon.
Bye, man.
Bye-bye.
All right. So I gotta say, I am Team Jeffords.
She has my vote.
Mm-hmm. She's, like she said, she's very, I know this is going to sound bad, but or could be taken bad, but she's very intense. I'll put it that way.
Very passionate.
Yes, that's a great way of putting it. I like that much better. Very passionate. She's very committed to, and she has a very strong conviction and really pursuing what she perceives as the right thing to do. I mean, you see it from her volunteer work through various organizations outside of politics. You see that she has risen through the ranks very quickly within her local political outlets, and now she's wanting to take the next step to becoming a state executive board member. And frankly, I think she's got the chops for it.
I do too. And I mean, everybody thinks I think she wouldn't have any stage fright. That's the real test, right? You can kind of start to run a statewide campaign, but what are you going to do when you get on stage for your 3 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that her experience in the nonprofit and private sector is going to carry over into politics, and she can use what she's learned on those platforms in this one.
Well, I mean, she was also Miss Georgia.
That's what I mean. She's already ran a statewide campaign.
I don't think that she's going to have very much stage fright up there.
I don't either. I think she's going to be great for the job.
Mm-hmm. And I really think that not only she's going to be great for the job, but she's really got the tenacity to push forward her own passions and pursuits outside of what just the secretary is delineated in the party bylaws.
Yep.
Because I mean, in all honesty, looking at a lot of these, a lot of the bylaws within the executive board, a lot of their enumerated responsibilities and everything. I mean, the only real position it sounds like you need is the chairman and the treasurer. That's about it. Or the secretary too, frankly, to be honest with you, because who's the one that's actually going to sign the paperwork?
Well, and who's the keeper of the records?
Exactly.
Which is why the secretary is a very valuable position, because at the end of the day, if you don't, who
There's
keeps
no record.
if there's no record, it never
never
happened,
happened.
which makes it even worse,
Mhm.
especially if something were to go awry.
Exactly. But with that, we also like to take a moment to again remind our comrades out there of Jamie's Law, and that you are required to hit the like button and the share button on any of the content that you see that we produce and release, as well as hit that subscribe button. That way you will know your talking points heading into the future. You will know what to think because we've said it. We also like to point you to our website at conservativestalk.org, because our subliminal messaging is not free. It does cost money. So we do need sponsors. So make sure you are hitting that sponsor tab in the upper right-hand corner and the lower right-hand corner and helping us out with what you're able to, because every little bit does go a long way towards us effectively controlling minds.
Every time you say subliminal messaging.
We want to say thank you to our affiliates, and the first one being Net News Network. You can find Net News Network at netnewsnetwork.net, and Veterans for America First. You can find Veterans for America First at veteransforamericafirst.org. And we also want to say a quick thank you to Vet Voice. They are the media arm of Veterans for America First and really do a great job of pushing that content. So, Jamie, without giving away all of our secrets, how about giving us your final thought?
I was just going to mention a frog, but that's a whole other ballgame.
See what I'm working with, y'all.
Final thought is this. It's convention time. See you in Columbus. It's the perfect time to get engaged. And as you know, we have, as you see from our last show, we have a very wide national range. So if you are interested in getting involved in politics at any level in any state across the United States, go ahead and go to our website at conservativestalk.org and hit the contact tab, and then just send us your information and what office you would like to run for, and we'll connect you with the right people.
Sounds great. So with that, this is Conservatives Talk, and we will be seeing you soon.